Hey everybody, it's your old pal Wood Doofus here. I finally finished my closet unit on this side of the wall, and between the 4 feet of closet I got on this side and the 4 feet of closet I got on the other side, I spent between $500 and $600 on all the materials that I got. Now, I recently talked to somebody that said she paid a company $12,000 to build 2 closets. So even being conservative about that, I'd say that one 8-foot section of closet with drawers and shelves and everything would probably cost between $3,000 and $5,000 if you paid somebody to do it. So one of the things I see on YouTube and the internet a lot is like, sure, you spent only that much money on building that, but you used $10,000 worth of tools to do it. So first of all, I don't use $10,000 worth of tools. Second of all, you'd still be able to save money if you bought all the tools that I used and the materials versus paying somebody to do this project. So in this video, I'm going to spend time showing you how I built this, but I'm also going to spend time at the end giving you the cost breakdown of both the materials that I used as well as the tools that I used. At that point, you can make up your mind if this is cost effective to build it yourself or not. My opinion is that if you want to be somebody that saves money by building your own projects, this is the perfect project to start with, because I believe you can save money buying the materials and all the tools that you need versus paying somebody to do it. So let's get into the build. So let's talk about the build process so far. What I have here is 4 boxes of 16-inch deep closet stuff. This whole assembly so far is made out of 2 sheets of 3/4 inch plywood. All the drawers that I have going on the bottom are made out of 1 sheet of 1/2 inch plywood, plus the bottoms are made out of some kind of 1/4 inch material. The first step in the process of getting to this point is to cut the 16-inch strips. And I did that with any kind of straight edge or guide to rip the plywood down. 1 sheet of plywood will give you 3 8-foot strips of 16-inch deep material. You don't have to buy any kind of fancy straight edge. You can make one if you want to. Either way, as long as you get a straight cut, it'll work. All these boxes are assembled with a system of 1 1/4 inch pocket hole screws, and in some places I use 1 1/4 inch 16 gauge brad nails. I use at least 4 on each side of this, and all of these pocket holes that I've made are going to be hidden by the time it's fully installed. For these top 2, it just has the 4 walls and these support braces across the bottom back corner and the top back corner, and that just gives it a little bit of rigidity. You don't have to add a lot of extra support because this is going to be mounted to the walls, so I never waste my time treating it like it's going to be a freestanding structure. So the bottom 2 cabinets are the same size as the top 2, but these are designed to have drawers in them. So with drawers, I like to use these cross pieces here. That's not only going to give me some support for the drawers, but it's going to help me keep those boxes square. So as long as I keep the lengths of each one of these the exact same length as the cross piece on the top, then it's going to stay square up and down that way. So when I started to make the second box, I just went ahead and made 2 flat pieces, both on the front and on the back. And now when I want to install these, I just rest them on those 2. And as long as those are level, then it's perfect. The way that I know they're level is I use spacer blocks when I screw these in. Starting on the bottom, I put spacer blocks up against the wall. They used to fit. But once they're up against the wall, I rest the spacer on there and I use pocket holes to screw them into place. Once that one's in place, then I put it on the next one up and screw this one into place, and then this one, and then I do the exact same thing on the back, and that way all of these are perfectly level because I use the same spacer block every time. I don't know why they're so tight now. These drawer boxes are soft close drawers. This was my prototype drawer. I made a few mistakes on it, but it works overall, and that's the soft close. I tried to make it so they close pretty close to the outside of the box itself because I'm going to add on a face frame, which is going to add 3/4 of an inch. And once I do that, I'm going to put on a drawer front that should match up almost flush with the face frame, and then I'll have flush mounted drawers. It's important to remember to buy the drawer slides before you start building anything. That way you can make sure they're built to the specifications of having the drawer slides fit into your units. These are 16-inch deep drawer slides, so I know that I want 15-inch deep drawers. You can measure back to these pins if you want, but I have 15 inches to the front lip, which is how far I want my drawer box to come. And that's how I know I need a 15-inch sidewall to this. Now these drawer slides are specifically designed for 1/2-inch material. 3/4 inch will not work on those, so make sure you pay attention if you ever buy drawer slides, what kind of material you're going to make your drawer box out of. Get the measurement of the front and back piece of your drawer. You're going to want to pull your drawer slides out and then measure across. And be a little generous with this. Once you get the measurement, add like a 1/16, maybe an 1/8 of an inch. And that way it won't pinch when you actually install the drawers. So here's one assembled drawer box. As you can see, we have the two 15 inches on the sides. These are the front and back pieces, which ended up being 19 and 7/8 inches long. And to cut that groove, I just use the table saw and I make 3 passes on each piece. I only have to cut 3 pieces of each box because the back side does not have the grooves. Once I have all the grooves cut and I make sure that my bottom panel will actually fit into that groove, then I can assemble this box. And I just use 1 1/4 inch brad nails, 18 gauge. And glue, of course. The glue actually holds better than the brad nails. You can see my back panel here is the short one, and it's about 3/4 inches shorter than the other ones because I'm using 1/4 inch material, so I have a 1/4 inch gap and a 1/2 inch reveal on the bottom. Now the 1/2 inch reveal on the bottom is important because that's what's necessary for the drawer slides to work. So you need exactly a 1/2 inch on the bottom for that. Once you have a box assembled, you can go ahead and measure how big you need your bottom panel to be. And so once you got the bottom panel made, it's just going to slide right in. Like that. And then you can pin it to the back panel of the drawer and everything will be strong. Once you have all your drawer boxes assembled, you can go ahead and sand them up nicely. Make sure there's no splinters that want to catch you later on. And then after it's sanded, I put a coat of polyurethane on there. And that'll keep it smooth and protected while it's in use over the years. The back of each drawer slide has these little hooks on it, and these hooks need to sink into the back of the drawer. That's another reason why the drawer has to be measured precisely. Now they do make fancy jigs to mark where the hole needs to be cut, but what I do is I just take the drawer once the slide is installed and I bang it against the back so that this thing will make a mark on the drawer, and now I know where to drill that 1/4 inch hole. Now where the mark is, I want that to be the bottom of the hole, not the center of the hole, and that helps make a good grip on the back. So here's the 1/4 inch drill bit. There's where my hole's supposed to be. Make sure the mark is on the bottom. And drill just a little ways in there, maybe like a 1/4 inch. It's a 1/2 inch material, so about halfway through it. Drill the other side. Now it's almost ready to install. The last thing I need to do is install the mating piece of the drawer slide, which go on the bottom. Now this is why we needed that 1/2 inch reveal on the bottom. It's because these have at least a 1/2 inch of clearance that they need. And we're just going to use 2 screws on each one. Obviously they come in left and right orientations. All right, they're both installed, so we're ready to clip it in. So the moment of truth is, I'm just gonna pop it in on top of the slide. It's gonna latch onto those mating pieces. The back is gonna go into the holes, and it's in there, or it should be. And it works. All right, so that's it for the build so far. I'm gonna go ahead and install the rest of these drawer slides and drawers, and once they are in, the rest of the build is gonna be upstairs in the closet. All right, so I got the 2x4 skirt all ready, and that's gonna be what the boxes sit on top of. But since I'm doing built-ins, I need to remove the baseboards and the carpet. And I'm gonna remove the carpet with my blade right here and use this as a template. But I don't wanna start cutting until I remove the baseboards first and push the skirt up against the wall where it should be. Otherwise, I'll be off by like an inch. So here we go. So I just put the first corner piece in place, and I need to notch out the top of this baseboard to fit it. But I also need to remember, whew, still tired from carrying it up. I also need to remember I need to notch out enough for the face frame too, so another 3/4 inch to do it, right about there, over from there. And that's about what I need to cut out. So I'm just going to move this, cut it out with my oscillating tool, and then it should slide in. So I got all 4 units in here, and once I put all 4 of them in, I went ahead and connected them to each other with a bunch of 1¼ screws that go into various places. Got a couple on the pretty much all the corners. If I was thinking, I would have put these ones on the underneath. I put 2 on the front coming up from underneath. Those should have been the same since they will be less visible down there. But you can see that I just need to install a little trim on this side to match this over here. And then I can put the drawers in, and then I really just need to paint. I'm going to make some shelves later on for this unit. This is going to be another hanging unit. But overall, coming along. So I spent like a week making these drawer fronts. I thought I could use some scraps in the garage, make something nice, but once I started to install these, I decided I didn't like them at all. I was gonna stain them dark and everything, put some nice drawer pulls on there, but I decided just to scrap this all together and go with some simple shaker style doors. So here's the shaker style doors that I made. This is actually the first time I used a router bit set that's just for making shaker tongue and groove systems. So I'll probably make a separate video about that system and show you step by step how to make a drawer front like this, or a door, or whatever you want to do with that shaker kit. But for now, I'm just going to install these drawer fronts and keep going. So I have this little sliver of wood that's going to act as my shim, and that's just going to give me, well, shim's the wrong word for it. A spacer is a better word. So this is going to act as a spacer between the bottom and the drawer front, and then between the 2 drawer fronts as I go on up. Now this is all pre-measured, so I already know what kind of space I need it to cover, with a little bit of gap that's covered by the spacer. I didn't paint the back of this thing, but I did pre-drill the holes where the drawer pulls are going to need to be installed, and I'll show you how I made that jig to do that when I install the drawer pulls. For now, I just set it on top of that spacer. I'm going to use the holes that I have for the drawer pulls to set the drawer front in place. And once it's in place, I'll screw it in from the back into the sides from the back. And then I can take these screws out and install the drawer pulls when I'm ready. So the first one's in. Seems okay. So I'll put the spacer on top of there and do the next one. That doesn't look right. Alright, so I'm going to need a little bit of adjusting. I don't know what's going on, maybe a wider shim or something, but it always wants to sink every time I take the shim out. So you live and learn. I'll get something thicker and try it again. Alright, so I was noticing after I screwed them in, it still sank, even though I had it shimmed up. Doesn't make any sense, but I just used double the shims, and since it sinks almost the width of one of these shims, it worked out when I used the double shims. See? I was gonna keep my original plan on the top just for a differentiation in color or something, but now it doesn't quite, well, it doesn't fit when there's a shim, so I'm gonna have to rip one edge of it. But I'm happy with this so far. What I want to do now is screw in from the inside of the drawer into these sides with 1¼ screws. And I need to do some math to make sure they don't go through. I got a 1/2 inch plus 3/4. That is 1¼ inch. So that's pretty close. I don't want it to poke through, that would really suck. All right, I figured it out. I just put the 1¼ inch screws in at an angle, and that way I don't risk having it poke out just a little bit, since the 1/2 plus 3/4 is exactly 1¼ inch. Check my math on that. But yeah, with an angle, it all works out fine. So I screwed it in that way. So now that they are screwed in from the back side with 4 screws, I can take these screws out and install the drawer pulls. Now the drawer pulls, I'm going to need probably at least a 2-inch screw. Let's see, I got 1.5 inches plus a 1/2 inch, that's 2 inches, plus another 1/2, that's 2.5. So it sounds like I need 2-inch screws. It's got this thing on here that sits inside, catches that lip, and these two catch the side lips, so I know it's always centered in place. And I just tape it. Trying to get this side facing up. And it probably goes without saying, but adding these drawer pulls helps secure the drawer front to the box too. So now everything is super strong. There we go, we got all my drawer pulls. So let's talk about cost breakdown for this project. Now materials, I use 3 sheets of 3/4 inch plywood. I use 1 sheet of 1/2 inch plywood. I use 1 sheet of 1/4 inch MDF, although I don't even think I used half of that to make the drawer fronts. I use poplar for my face frame on the cabinets, as well as the frames of the drawer fronts. I use like 2 or 3 2x4s. The hardware was about $100 maybe. The drawer slides, I guess they're also hardware, but they were about $100. So overall, the cost of the project for both sides of the closet, I made 2 videos, one for each side. So the cost of both sides was about $560 in materials. I guess you put a can of paint in there and it rounded up to $600. Now these tools that I bought, 5 or 6 years ago, it's harder to find the prices that I got, but I do have a list of suggested tools in the comment section that you can get on Amazon. And I'm going to add up the prices of the current things on that list, just as a rough estimate of how much you would need to pay for a general shop full of tools to get basic things done. The first main tool every shop should have is a table saw, and this one cost me like $120. You can't really find them that cheap unless you go to really crappy low-end stuff, which I would not recommend. So the table saw I found on Amazon costs about $500. It'll definitely get plenty of work done. The next thing you need is a miter saw. Those are hard to get along without. You can use a circular saw for a lot of stuff, but eventually you're going to need to step up to a miter saw. I have a 12-inch blade on this, and it's a sliding. It's a Ryobi. It only cost me like $250. But yeah, you're going to spend at least $200 on a good sliding compound miter saw to get the job done. Now I did say circular saw. I'd say the first 2 tools I had was a circular saw and just like a drill. And that's how I built my first deck. And that's basically all I had. So a circular saw will run you anywhere from $50 to $150. If it's your first circular saw, go ahead and get one that plugs in. Don't worry about the batteries, platforms, and all that stuff. Maybe down the line you'll invest in a battery-powered circular saw. Speaking of drill and driver, it's good to have a drill and driver combo set. I have both the Ryobi and the Makita, which I really like the Makita, but the Ryobi did fine for me for a long time. And before that, I just had a corded DeWalt drill, which worked until it died on me. One thing I use a ton in the projects that I make is the pocket hole jig. I have the Craig Jig 720 Pro, which costs about $150, but you can get one of the simple small ones for like $40, $45. I have a link to that in the description as well as everything else. I did use an oscillating tool, which I think is still upstairs or something, and that's very useful when you're putting built-ins in a closet. I used the oscillating tool on this project just to cut the baseboards where I needed to insert the unit. A router and a router table are very important to have in your shop. I have this super crappy router table. I hope to upgrade sometime. But yeah, I have a Ryobi router in there and a Ryobi table. And I only use this, I think, on this project to make the drawer fronts, which wasn't even in the video, but I hope to make a separate video about making drawer fronts. So this is good to have. I got this table for $100 and the router for $80. You can get them for a little bit more than that now, not too bad. The last but super important thing that I have in the shop is this 18 gauge brad nailer. Obviously, when you're building boxes, you want to be able to glue it and nail it. And a battery powder is really nice to have compared to like a pneumatic tool that you hook up to an air compressor, because you don't always want to have to turn on the air compressor every time you want to nail something. So it's a really good investment to look for a battery powered nailer. I think the 18 gauge is a good place to start. The 16 gauge is a little bit thicker, but I use this 18 gauge way more than I use the 16 gauge. And this was like $120. Yeah, so like I said, I got all the links in the description and the prices that I got just off of some Amazon tools that I thought would be a good starter kit was about $1,720. Obviously, you can get by with spending less than that, and you can spend a lot more than that very easily. But if you add up that $1,720 plus the $560 that I got in materials, you have $2,280. So in my opinion, with the materials and the tools, I spent less than half of what it would cost to pay somebody to build a closet like I built. So the point of all this is to say that these tools might be expensive, they might cost some money, but they eventually, very quickly, can pay for themselves. All right, so that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you are the person that doesn't have any tools but is considering going down that road where you can build your own projects and investing in things like that, I hope this video gave you an idea of the kind of things that you can do if you just think about it a little differently. Otherwise, stay safe, and as always, don't be afraid to be a doofus.